The Fox City Score chapter and WHBY are pleased to bring you Biz Talk, a chance for you to hear from entrepreneurs and professionals as they share their experiences from starting to sustaining growth. Learn the skills needed for your business to be successful. If you missed anything, you can catch the Biz Talk podcast at biztalkwithscore.com. And now from the Myron Construction Studio, it's Biz Talk on WHBY.
Good morning and happy Saturday, everyone. I'm Rick Sense along with co-host Terry Pitch today. Terry, how you doing?
I'm doing very well. It's another beautiful January, February, March day in Wisconsin, but I've learned to adjust to this.
Wisconsin is a great place to live if you don't mind the weather for just a few weeks of the year. So yeah, it can be touchy sometimes. Today I'm really happy to introduce our guest. His name is Tanner Thorne. Tanner is the Vice President of External Affairs for Plug Light Bulb Electrical Services. Tanner, you're quite the pillar of the community in Green Bay. If you've been out into mixers, networking events at all, I'm sure you already know Tanner. He's really one of those people who's gotten a chance to meet a lot of folks in our community, and he's just been a great asset. And the company he works for is a very exciting company, and we're really excited to have him on today. So welcome to the show, Tanner.
Thanks for having me, Rick. Thanks for having me, Terry.
So first question I have for you, Tanner, is could you just maybe give listeners an idea of what your organization actually does?
Absolutely. So here at Plug Light Bulb Electrical Services, the simplified way we give it out, and it's kind of funny the way you think of it, is we will do anything from an outlet all the way up to a nuclear power plant and beyond. And that's a lot to digest, but for us, there's nothing too big or too small that we can't help someone with. Our company motto is the Here For You crew, and that can mean a multitude of things. So to break it down even more, we do everything from service work, emergency repairs, which Mother Nature, Wisconsin, with all 13 of our seasons, likes to rear her head in multiple different ways. And we always try to be that beacon, if you will. Absolutely no pun intended there by any means. We also do anything from commercial projects that are 6 figures all the way up to 9-10 figures if the opportunity presents itself. And it's a good type of relationship to have. And then we've also done a lot in the renewable sector. So we do a lot with EV chargers, with the wonderful EV vehicles themselves. We do a lot with solar. We've been asked very frequently to do things with wind turbines as much as the mixed bias is on that realm. So there's nothing too big that we won't help with. Half the time, we just like having conversations with folks who are curious, because curiosity, it breeds innovation, and we love to innovate and help things become better.
Listeners don't have the luxury of seeing you in person like I do today. You're wearing a brightly colored pink polo shirt. And, if you look at your company's website, you see a lot of pink. Can you maybe just walk us through why the pink color for your organization?
Absolutely. So Matt, our owner, when he had founded the company, he had chose pink in honor of his grandmothers. So breast cancer for our company is massive. So American Cancer Society for us is kind of our pillar philanthropic endeavor that we do. So we'll be part of any event that they do. Just like their color pink is trademarked to them, ours is trademarked to us as well. It's very unique to us. And through using it, we've actually found a couple of other value adds that it's given to us over time. One is it's actually considered a high vis color. So we're following OSHA regulations, as we try to do all the time, and stay within the confines and make sure our team is safe. And then 2, through learning and just being around for a long period of time, seeing a burly man, typically in Wisconsin, who has a nice thick beard, wear pink walking into your home is a psychological diffuser. So a lot of our decision makers in a home when we come do service work are ladies, and to the tune of about 77.2%, according to our last year's data. So there's some facts for you, because most of the time it's very conversational, and our team is highly engaged in educating and making people feel comfortable in their own home, because they use it a heck of a lot more than my technicians do.
And so what is the mission of the organization? What's the stated mission? And maybe if you could walk us through, you talked a little bit earlier about the market and the types of jobs that you'll do as far as dollar volume, but is it mostly local, or are there jobs that are done outside the area? If maybe you can walk listeners through that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So the mission of Plug Light Bulb is to spread a culture of engagement, fostering, and growth. And that can be a multitude of ways that you want to skin it. For us, we try to be involved with the community by actively engaging in educational initiatives, because you can never stop learning, first and foremost, regardless of your age. We do a lot of outreach programs for different collaborative efforts. We talked about American Cancer Society. We do a lot for veterans, just because we have a lot of veteran staff on board as well. And then overall volunteering. I mean, in 2023, when I came on board over here, one of the first things I did was pick up a shovel during a snowstorm in De Pere, and we went and shoveled out some of our elderly neighbors who couldn't get out of their driveway. And I'm like, what are we doing? We're electricians. But unbeknownst to us, people were taking photos of like, hey, who are all these pink guys walking around my neighborhood shoveling sidewalks and driveways? We couldn't do our jobs, so we said, why not donate the time? So for us, it's a situation of how do we bring that Midwestern work ethic and hospitality of a stranger waving to you, but doing that while also continuing to grow. So it's a very interesting type of philosophy we have.
And the jobs that you do, are they mostly in the Green Bay area, the Green Bay market, or are they outside of Green Bay? And maybe walk listeners through that.
Absolutely. So for us, we always try to be local. We always try to make sure our guys are home every night so they can be with their families or be able to do their hobby. Unfortunately, with how big of a reach we have because of our work ethic here in Wisconsin, that's just not speaking on my behalf, but that's a lot of our trades as well as manufacturing. We get pulled to states like I have jobs going on currently in Illinois. I have jobs going on in Tennessee. I have a second location down in Georgia. Heck, I even have a traveling technician who his family sits in Orlando, Florida, but he just loves how we operate. So for us, it's based on the individual, where they want to go, and also what they want to do. And that's how we run our business. So we don't pigeonhole by any means. It's where do you want to go? It's your life journey, and how do we make it the fullest it can be?
Now, you mentioned, I believe you said 2023 is when you started there. Can you maybe give listeners an idea of what you saw at your organization that convinced you that you wanted to join the team?
Absolutely. So I was actually Matt's insurance agent. So I got to see some of the growth over the last couple of years before he had basically approached me and said, hey, I want you to come work for me. If there's ever an opportunity, please let me know. So that actually happened at one point in time. And before I knew it, I was hired in 48 hours. And the real reason I came over here, because it was between Plug Light Bulb Electrical Services and a manufacturing facility, both here in Green Bay. But it was truly based on the culture and how they treated their clients. And I felt internally my values matched up with what they were trying to achieve, and how I've always treated not only individuals, but my clients to make sure that they always had the best service possible.
So your earlier career experience, obviously you have an interesting perspective on things, not being an electrician by trade. Could you maybe give listeners an idea of how that has impacted the organization, having somebody that maybe is outside of that world? So if your past that you brought forward to help the organization, how does that impact you guys on a daily basis?
I would say that I'm very blessed to have gotten to this point in my life. And the experiences I've had since I was a teenager. I mean, I grew up in Shawano, Wisconsin, and I always had my grandparents and my family always saying, hey, work hard and good things will come to you. Never shut a door that you're not willing to shut forever. And I think that's a huge mentality that I have you're never one too old to learn, and you're never not apt to have a conversation, regardless of who the individual is. And as I grew up, so I started my true career with a place called Chimney Mechanics out of Shawano with a guy by the name of Jasper Drengler, who taught me what it was like to treat people with value, dignity. It didn't matter who they were, what they did. But at the end of the day, I remember working on, funny enough, Mark Scogan's house that was being built multiple years ago that looked over Lambeau. And then at the same time, I was in a family's home who was just trying to have some heat in their house. And that was all within 12 hours. So it was eye-opening being a teenager, seeing, okay, I'm getting perspective, but I'm also learning work ethic because those were long days. And then as I went on, it was a lot of mentors, I think, is what blessed me the most, because they all wanted more. They were determined, they were motivated to take care of something. Their why was really strong. And I learned a lot of that when I was at Penske, with them, Penske being a multi-billion-dollar corporation, and seeing the inner workings of how business can flow when you put the right people in the right spots. So with all of those perspective I've gained over time, and being able to come here, it's allowed me to be a really good leader, but also mentor my fellow coworkers who may have questions about things that they don't know yet. Or I may have resources in my network who can help bring them up to speed and exponentially grow. And I think that's something that's different in, I would say, the last 30 years, is that community sense has really started to churn, where people are willing to share information because they see how important it is to compound and get the best out of your community, which is why I've always endeavored to do networking and see what's going on, because if you bottle and you hermit, you're only as good as yourself. But that cross collaboration goes a long way.
You had mentioned, you used the phrase "their why." Maybe you could just take a few seconds to explain to listeners what that means to you.
Yeah. So the why, as we talk about, is what allows you and what motivates you to get up day after day after day, regardless of how your life is going, how work is going, and what you're trying to achieve. So when I break down the why, I mean, you guys can't see it on the phone call and virtual call we had today, but right in front of me, I have a picture of my family. So I have my beautiful wife, Courtney, my wonderful daughter, Ainsley, and our dog, Baxter. And they're a huge part of my why, because I want to provide them the best life possible that I didn't necessarily have when I was growing up. And that is something that I hope my daughter never has to go through. I want her to grow. But also the why is community focused. If I can do that for my family, why can't I help my fellow coworkers have that type of life that they've always wanted? Why can't I help my fellow community members out who are outside of this building make sure that they're taking care of everything they're doing? And how do we do that in a cultural sense without being overbearing? And it's a tactful approach.
So you've been there again since 2023. What's been the most interesting thing that's happened in your role so far since you've been there?
Oh, I would say between spending a lot of time doing my own research and studying to make sure that I'm the best version of myself in this capacity, it would be just how widespread we are, and how that has literally just boiled down to a conversation. I mean, we work with multi-billion-dollar companies such as Driven Brands that a lot of folks may not know by name, but if I say Take 5 Oil Change, oh yeah, those guys. Or Take 5 Car Wash, yeah, absolutely. I mean, we do a lot with those folks across the country. We're actually help consult them. And people are like, what do you mean? You're a 7-year-old company. You're helping consult a multi-billion-dollar corporation? Well, yeah, to an extent. I mean, our expertise is in the electrical field, and if whatever we can help teach them and guide them on becomes practice, well, now they're saving money, they're taking care of their employees, they're taking care of the communities that they're in all over the country. And a lot of times it leads to a phone call saying, hey, can you guys fly someone out to New Mexico, which just happened a couple months ago? I have a fire drill. I don't know what to do. You guys are my first call. Yeah, absolutely. We're on our way. We'll take care of you. And that's just a relationship that's been built. And that's just based on individuals and helping them achieve their goals, even though that we're not sharing W-2s.
Yeah. All right.
Okay, we're at the spot for our first break. You're listening to Biz Talk with Score and WHBY, and we will be right back. Welcome back. We're glad you joined us this morning. Our guest this morning is Tanner Thorne from Plug Light Bulb Electrical Services. Before continuing the conversation with Tanner, I'd like to talk to you about SCORE Northeast Wisconsin. SCORE Northeast Wisconsin serves an 18-county area in northeast Wisconsin, plus the county of Menominee in Michigan. We have about 50 volunteers, each an expert in their field, offering entrepreneurs no-cost and confidential mentoring. Those areas of expertise include IT, social media, cash flow, accounting, planning, HR, and many others. In order to register for a no-cost confidential mentoring session and learn more about SCORE Northeast Wisconsin, visit our website, thescore.org/Northeast Wisconsin. You can learn more about the SCORE chapter and how we can assist you, and also learn a lot about starting or growing your business. And you can even complete an application for a mentoring session. Simply complete the online form and submit it to SCORE. Within a few days, the SCORE mentor will be contacting you to set up a meeting. Remember, SCORE is no cost and offers experts who can offer you assistance in many different areas. To get started, visit the website at score.org/Northeast Wisconsin, and that's all one word, Northeast Wisconsin. To support small business, SCORE Northeast Wisconsin is always looking for new mentors. If you have experience that you'd like to share with others, we'd love to talk to you. We welcome volunteers with experience in all aspects of business. Small business owners need your help, and your experience can make a real difference to your success. And SCORE offers training for new mentors as well to help you prepare. Go to score.org/Northeast Wisconsin, click on the volunteer button, and fill out a short application. We'll get back to you to explain more. Thanks again for joining us in Biz Talk, and now back to Tanner. And Tanner, following and building on the first segment, let's talk a little bit more about what you're really offering to your customers. So what values do you bring to customers?
Absolutely. That's a really good question, Terry. So I would say one thing that we offer to our clients is understanding. And what I mean by that is when we have someone who calls in to say, hey, I'd like to schedule my lights to be fixed. Sure, we can do that, but can we ask you some questions? And that starts at the front line. And the reason we ask the game of 20 questions is because we want our technicians, one, to walk into a situation where they're safe, they're confident, because then they do their best work for the client. And then when we're on site doing something of that nature, we also do it at no cost to our customers by any means, is we'll do an electrical inspection on their home because we're already in there. And that doesn't cost the customer any more, any less. It's literally just, hey, here's the report card on your house. And the reason that's a value add is because then it allows the customer to actually see the inner workings of their home. Because I don't know about you guys, I don't have X-ray vision. I'm not Superman. But when I'm in there and I'm able to do something, I'd rather know about it as a homeowner. And a lot of times we find out that customers are absolutely shocked at what's going on behind their walls. For instance, here in Green Bay, Wisconsin, we have homes that are 100 plus years old. Electrical code from back then is way different than it is now. And it's not just plug and play anymore. Technicians on our side of the game have to understand, hey, what were our fellow electricians doing decades ago, and how does it differ than today, and how do we take that and simplify it and educate the customer so they're making the best choice for their family. And that's not something that's easy to do all the time, because I don't know about you, but I don't know quantum physics, and I would need someone to break it down for me really easily. And from there, we want to understand what you want to do with your home. And we use that with our knowledge of our code to say, hey, this may not be the best time for you to spend this money. And hopefully the client on the other side is saying, well, why? Why don't you want to take my money? Because that's bizarre. Most subcontractors are like, yeah, I will come in, I'll fix your lights, and I'll see you later. Call me when you need me next time. But we want to know what else you're trying to do, because if we can help you save money down the line by something we can do in today's age and explain when it could possibly happen, it allows you to better prepare. It allows you to budget and get the biggest bang for your buck. And that allows us to really have a high level of customer service. And customers want that more now than ever.
Okay. And so with plug light bulb, how does that translate to how you work with commercial as well as local customers?
Absolutely. So another great question, Terry. So when we take that type of philosophy over to the commercial side, a lot of our consults or requests to bid are in two forms. One is a plan build where, hey, here's an architectural set of prints. Give me your best number. Awesome. We can definitely do that. But more often than not, we're not the lowest bid if that's what you're looking for. So we'll pre-qualify ourselves either in or out of the door really fast. Where we have been shining lately is in our design build, where we get an architectural print of say, the office you guys are both in or your home, and say, hey, can you help me build this? This is what my client is looking for. This is what they're trying to achieve. And that level of understanding can come through then. And then we can match up what the customer is really, really valuing with our slice of the pie in the electrical realm. And some of our clients like it bare bones. Awesome. That's okay with us. Some of our clients, like we have some custom homes up in Door County, they want it when they turn on their music in their cathedral ceiling, it amplifies and it moves with the waves, and it's super cool because that's just who they are as an individual. Well, we want to bring those dreams to reality, and we can only do that by asking really good questions to make sure when you walk into your home or your business, you're proud of it every single time over the next 20, 30, 40, 50 years of you as an owner or a worker there.
Okay. So as we get into the next segment, we'll talk in a lot more detail about the business and how the business works with the community. But before then, we're going to take our second break, and you're listening to Biz Talk with Score and WHBY, and we'll be right back after these messages.
Welcome back to Biz Talk with Score on WHBY Radio. I'm Rick Stentz along with Terry Pinch this morning. And before we get back to our guest, Tanner Thorne, Vice President of External Affairs at Plug Light Bulb Electrical Services, I just would like to spend a moment here just talking to listeners and Terry a little bit about our podcast. We're pretty excited about that here at Biz Talk, and it's something that we started about a few months ago now. And Terry, if somebody's interested in checking out the podcast, where would you direct them?
Yeah. First thing we always say is you can listen to us live or online in WHBY on Saturday mornings, but then we do have a podcast from the show, and you can go out to quite a few podcatchers like Apple, Spotify, Alexa, iHeart, TuneIn, and the biggest one is probably iTunes, but they're all valuable. And you can find the podcast. We started up in July on these podcatchers. Prior to that point, we were always only on our website. But you can get all of 2024 and up-to-date 2025 on those various sites. And then if you actually go to our website, you can go back to the beginning of 2018 and catch all the shows there, the pods there, podcast shows there too. This show's been on the air since 2001. We don't know exactly when we started doing the podcasts, but I'm guessing it was sometime around 2012 or 13. But we've only got the shows available from 2018, but there's some really good ones out there if you want to listen to them. We really do appreciate people, whether they listen live in WHBY or join in on the podcast later from our website or from one of the many podcatchers.
All right. Well, thanks, Terry. And back to Tanner. Tanner, you're very involved in the community. And could you maybe share with listeners a little bit with where and how you're involved in the community?
Absolutely. So last years, I've been very fortunate to part of many organizations. One of the big ones that I've been involved with is HPBA, which is helping businesses build assets. That started with just forming a chapter a couple of years ago, and then it grew into being on the executive board and being president for a couple of years, and then handing off the reins. And you learn a lot about yourself and what you're capable of in an organization who is solely based on networking and just engagement and growing your business and having camaraderie around. And then I've been involved with numerous chambers. So I've been with the Greater Green Bay Chamber. Been in multiple roles over there as well as an ambassador, and got to know a lot of folks. That's actually where Rick and I originally first met. So taking us back down memory lane there. And then also I'm most recently an ambassador for the De Pere Chamber. David Vanderbloemen over there, who's the president, is also a really good buddy of mine. And again, also one of my past clients. So it's funny how the cycle of life just keeps flowing as people evolve. And then my wife and I are also foster parents. So we do a lot in the community because we like to give back. And that's never going to end. I mean, I also do a lot of things with nonprofits even before I came here. I mean, a lot of our viewers and listeners can't see it, but behind me, I have my pink suit. So if you're ever wondering, if you ever go to an American Cancer Society event, who's that dude in that awesome pink suit over there? That's probably me in my bedazzled back that says "Real Men Wear Pink" on it. That was all handmade by my sister because of how deep it runs in my family. So a lot of whys built into that.
So obviously the family connection is really a major reason, an important reason for you to give back. But what would you tell listeners, for those that are out there that are maybe thinking, oh, maybe I should get involved with something or do something more? What would you do to encourage them to do that?
I would honestly say do it. It's as simple as that. There's a book I always read called Eat the Frog. And my wife, as much as I love her, she's an introvert with extrovert tendencies. And I am 100% extrovert. I can talk with people with the best of them for a long period of time. And you have to, at some point, push yourself out of your comfort zone or you'll never grow. And that's hard, especially being in leadership roles or business roles or owner and entrepreneurial roles. Because when you do that, you're forcing yourself to grow in those uncomfortable situations. And you'll learn very quickly that half the time the people you talk to, they're just like you. They necessarily don't know anybody else in the room, but man, they're just happy someone's talking to them. And before you know it, you found common ground. And before you know it, all of a sudden it's an hour later and you realize that you're walking in the same rooms with the same people and trying to just achieve the same goals.
And people know this already a little bit from what you've shared earlier about the networking side of things. And you've, like you mentioned, that's how you and I met initially. Why is that important, do you think, to you personally, but also to your business?
I think for me personally, it's my community. It's fellow people who are just trying to do their best every single day. And that's all I'm trying to do. And if I can be a resource, either professionally or personally, for someone that I've met, and I have a life experience that can help elevate them or give them perspective, or maybe just actively listening and bending an ear for someone who doesn't know who to turn to, that's extremely important to me. I will make time for that every single time. I have almost monthly coffee meetings with some folks around the community who just want to get together and just not be under the pressure of society. And that's okay, because sometimes you just need to let it out. On the business side, it's important because I'm a representative of the company. I'm a representative of the brand of who we are. And if I can't, and in my role as an executive, walk the walk that I'm talking about, it's very hard for someone to grasp onto, saying, hey, you guys are so community engaged, but I only ever see your apprentices out here doing these volunteer efforts. I only see them out in the community. Where's the rest of the team? We don't do that. Everybody's an equal. And that's how we really look at it. So every time we have a nonprofit event, we're there. I mean, we even have that in our employee handbook. For every 2 hours our employees do, we'll give them an extra hour of PTO. But it has to be of their own volition. It has to be, say, hey, you got to use some personal time. That's huge to us. We want this to be part of your core, and that's how indebted we are. We're willing to make that.
So if you're working with people that in the community, it must have a business result too, right? I mean, you build friendships, you build relationships, not for the business component, but just because you're building the friendships and relationships. But does some of that carry over? Is there a return on investment for the business?
Well, absolutely. There can be. It really depends on what you as an individual are trying to achieve. And I would say that's kind of part of my secret sauce is whenever I go out and I network, it isn't necessarily to be a Kirby vacuum salesman that I hear about necessarily. As much as I love talking with those folks, I may not be in the realm for a vacuum, but I might be in the future. So if you're investing this time into networking to get an immediate result, it's probably not going to work, because networking is getting to know someone. It's getting to build a relationship. So when the time comes, it not only expedites whatever value it is or service you're providing, but there's also an inherent trust there that there's a guilt that if you don't come through and you don't take care of the person that is calling you, relying on you after you've built up all of this, it may not ever come to fruition again. And that just plays along with your word is your bond. And a lot of my conversation I have during networking is just being real. It's being genuine. It's being sincere. And honestly, sometimes I'll even ask, what are you trying to do this year? And it takes people back because they're like, I've never had anybody ask me that. Yeah, well, I like you. I like having conversations with you. And if I don't need something from you, but if I run across somebody who does, I know who to refer them to. And there was a model we used in our HBBA group that is still used today, and it's bring the big spoons. And that comes something that we made because when I was in college, I worked and volunteered with my fraternity brothers in a soup kitchen. You didn't eat the soup, but you served it out to dozens of people who just needed a hand. And that is the same mentality we use when it comes to networking. Because whatever you give, more often than not, it comes back tenfold in some way, shape, or form. Because it may not always come in business, but it may come from perspective or being able to pick up the phone and ask for advice. And that person, if you have that rapport and that relationship, is probably going to pick up that phone if they like you. And people don't just buy things like it's Amazon necessarily. They buy it because of who's selling it. And if it can provide a necessity for them in their life. And when I was an insurance salesman and I was doing those things, I never called myself a salesman. I always called myself an advisor because you may have not needed me. I may have told you that whatever you did was bad. I do the same thing now. And for some people, it's an investment. It's no different than your 401k or your simple funding or your savings account. You just have to build it up one conversation at a time.
One thing as you're talking that stands out is that it feels like an important part of networking then is trust. It can't be a transactional relationship. It has to be a real relationship where you build trust or there is not a lot of value to the network. Is that true?
I would say 100%, Terry. That's a very good way to put it. It's a situation that if you don't have trust, you don't have much. I mean, our ethics and our values in Wisconsin are different than a lot of the states I've had the pleasure of visiting. And some states are very transactional. When I went out to the East Coast, a lot of people I met were like, hey, I'll sell you this. I'll get this done, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, I don't even know you. What is your name? And here especially in Northeast Wisconsin, it's sit down and have a coffee. Let's talk. And then if I like you, let's talk business. And that's okay. You just have to find that in yourself because otherwise it will show very quickly with whoever you're working with, especially when you're dealing with C-suites.
What would you recommend to the sole proprietor that's running his or her business and they're kind of they're in it by themselves. They don't have a network that's right in front of them where they can just go down the hall and do that. What would you do and encourage them to do to maybe get past that hurdle and be out there in networking?
First and foremost, I would say plan it. Make it part of your routine. Force yourself to go socialize outside of just your family and trying to find that next transaction, especially if you're just starting out. A lot of times it's okay from whatever time of the week it is. If it's say Tuesday, like my weeks are Tuesday mornings, I will typically have a cup of coffee and I will just follow up with people. I will physically call them and say, how are you doing? Nothing to do with business. And it takes 5 minutes just to check up on somebody. That can mean the world to whoever's on the other side of the phone, but also selfishly, I just want to see how they're doing. They're a friend. I have the rapport with them. And sometimes the things you see on social media, somebody doesn't know who's going to pick up the phone and call them next. And that's just our world. And so for the sole proprietors out there, I would say if you're trying to go to that next level, say that. When you're out there networking and you get to know people, say, hey, I'm trying to get to my first 100 clients. Have you had to go through that before? Can you share your experience with me so maybe I can grab some nuggets and build on that? People love to talk about their successes and the things that they've done, because it psychologically gives them the warm and fuzzies, as we call it. Plus, then you probably get to learn a lot about their business too, and it goes hand in hand. It's not a selfish approach. And if you're going to ask, you'll be able to tell really quickly that person you're talking to if they truly care about who you are, because they'll probably ask the same question in a mirrored fashion to you because they want to know about you as well. And that's the exchange of value.
Well, let's switch directions here a little bit. I appreciate your insights on the networking. It's very educational and very thoughtful, Tanner. But could we maybe just go into the business a little bit more, and maybe if you'd be willing to share, what are some of the issues or some of the challenges that you're facing at Plug Light Bulb and Electrical Services?
Oh, that's a very loaded question, Rick. What I'd say first and foremost is finding good people. And what I mean by that is anybody can put on a tool belt and be an electrician, right? But what's terrifying is if I find people like that and I don't qualify them or find them as a good cultural fit, they could hurt themselves or others just because of how the nature is of our field. And our main priority is safety. We want to make sure everybody goes home every night just the same way they came in, maybe a little more hydrated because of our wonderful summers we have here, or maybe just a little stronger or a little more knowledgeable. And don't get me wrong, every business always looks glamorous on the outside, not saying we don't, but there's growing pains with how much we've grown since we were established in July of 2018. Every day is a new adventure. And that's something I really enjoy, even though it is a challenge, because it naturally forces me to grow. I don't have a choice. and that is something that you have to be used to. You have to take it in stride, and you have to bite one bite at a time. And through that attrition, you'll become a great company. You'll become a great individual. But you'll learn a lot. And you'll share a lot, and you'll have a lot of stories about, hey, do you remember when types of conversations? Or, man, I wish we would have known that 5 years ago that we just found out now type of things. And those memories internally are what make it so much fun. And then when you also get to share them with clients and say, man, we both grew up a lot, because our job is to make our client, whoever we're working with on an individual, we want them to rise in promotion too, because if that's happening internally here, then we're growing together. And that's our sense of community.
I worked for a 250 person company and a 60,000 person company. And then one was about 40,000, kind of not even close to the middle, but significantly different cultures and different ways of consistent. The 200 person company was pretty consistent across that organization. The 60,000 person company tried to be, but it was harder. Same. And how do you, as you grow, how do you think you're going to manage that cultural piece? And how do you try to keep it as consistent as possible?
That's a really good question. And we actually started talking about that yesterday. So way to hit that one right on the nose, Terry. So we sit down regularly as a leadership team, and we talk about the 1, 3, 5, 10-year plan. So, and we do that for a reason, because we never want to lose perspective of where we're trying to go. And we all want to be on the same page as we make those steps in tandem. And we don't want to leave things behind. So it's almost as if we're border collies and we're herding the sheep to where it needs to be. And I've been part of companies the same size, Terry, where you lose aspects. Now that's just going to happen, unfortunately, because if you have offices everywhere, ethics and culture is always different. But at the core, when you really look at it, that's what it has to boil down to. I mean, our 5 core values over here, our biggest one's integrity. If you don't have integrity, you have nothing. If you can't tell me what you're going to do and be honest about it and be transparent, then we have nothing to work on. The other one we have is excellence. It's always going above and beyond. We don't meet the bare minimum code. We always try to go above, because it's just going to make it that much safer. We have consideration. So that's part of our understanding we've talked about today as well, is being considerate of who you're talking to. don't ever talk down, because you could talk to a janitor one day or a CEO the next, and they could be the same person. You don't even know it. And then perseverance, because a lot of us are going to get our butt kicked. It's how do you put your boots back on and go back at it the next day, even though you know what you're going to walk into. But the diamond at the end of it from all that pressure is worthwhile. And then our last one's teamwork. I mean, I can't do this by myself. I physically can't, especially as we continue to grow. I don't have enough time in the day, which is why when you talk about the consistency, it's the consistency of knowing and trusting that your fellow people within your company are doing what's expected of them to reach those goals. So for us, our big hairy goal for 10 years is we want to be $1 billion company. Do we necessarily know every nook and cranny of how we're going to do it yet? No, because we know things are going to change. We're going to have to be flexible. If I had a perfect roadmap, man, I would exponentially get to there in 2 years, but it's just not. We have to continue to learn.
Okay. We've reached the point for our final break. You're listening to Biz Talk with Score and WHBY. I'll be right back after these messages.
Welcome back to Biz Talk with Score on WHBY. I'm Rick Sense along with Terry Pinch today, and our guest has been Tanner Thorne, Vice President of External Affairs for Plug Light Bulb Electrical Services. And before we get back to Tanner, I would just like to take a moment to thank our sponsors and donors who bring Biz Talk with Score to you each weekend. We couldn't present Biz Talk without their generous support. Thank you to Haling & Associates. Haling & Associates helps small businesses and individuals not just prepare tax returns, but plan ahead, helping you minimize taxes for this year and beyond. Haling & Associates, personal connection, positive results. Thank you to Johnson Financial Group. Wherever you are in life or the life of your business, Johnson Financial Group works with you to understand your goals, matching the right banking and wealth services to help you complete your mission. Thanks to the Business News for promoting our program in the biweekly business newspaper serving Northeast Wisconsin. The paper is delivered biweekly and contains relevant and useful information about the business community in Northeast Wisconsin. We'd also like to recognize the David L. and Rita E. Nelson Fund within the Community Foundation for the Fox Valley region for their generous donation and support of Biz Talk and Score Northeast Wisconsin. So Tanner, if people wanted to learn more or get in touch with you, how would they go about doing that?
So first and foremost, I'd say visit our website. So our website is www.plbes.com. So it's just Plug Light Bulb Electrical Services, turned into an acronym. From there, we're on just about every social media network. You're welcome to follow, subscribe, interact. I mean, half the fun is just seeing what people's thoughts are. If you want to get directly a hold of me, I'm not ashamed at all to say, hey, my cell phone is 920-241-1902. I'm always more than happy to have a conversation, give perspective, help people in whatever manner it may. Or if there's someone if I don't know the answer and I know someone, I'll connect you. I love connecting people to just see where we can go as a community.
We kind of touched on a lot of this in many different ways today, talking about your background and your past and things you've done in your career path. But could you maybe pull that all together for the listener and just kind of walk through how your career path prepared you to where you are today?
Absolutely. So to kind of recap in a simple fashion is I never expected to be in the electrical field, making that very, very honest and transparent. I went to school for communications with the thought process I was going to be a crisis PR individual and I was going to be at a Fortune 100 company and just handling things. That was my goal. That was my ambition. I was the first in my family to go to college. And then from there, it just turned into, I don't like major cities of that size. I don't enjoy sitting in my car in rush hour traffic. That's not me. I enjoy having the conversations. And big lesson for me was be fluid. Be open to seeing what is out there, because if you're genuine and you're honest and you're transparent, good things will find you. And that is exactly what's happened here. I've now been in truck sales in Wisconsin Kenworth to Penske to going into insurance, to being a chimney sweep, to working in manufacturing. And I'm now in an electrical field and I love it. I enjoy the people I work with. I enjoy where my industry is going. And and seeing the innovation that's happening that's keeping me on my toes, because I get bored if I don't have a challenge.
All right.
Okay. Tanner, we'd like to thank you very much for coming in today. It was a great discussion, and I think it was really helpful for our listeners to hear about how someone has used their career path to help themselves personally grow, but also use their personal growth path to help their business as well, and the interactions between them. So we really appreciate that.
Absolutely. Thank you, gentlemen, for having me on today.
Okay. Thank you. For our listeners, you've been listening to Biz Talk with Score and WHBY. If you want to re-listen to this episode or find any of our episodes from the last year or so, you can go to your favorite podcatcher like iTunes or Alexa or Spotify, or you can go to our website at score.org/Northeast Wisconsin. You'll find the last 6 years of the show. We really do appreciate you listening. And again, thank you for supporting WHBY. They've been a great help for us over, which should be 24 to, I think we're heading into our 25th year shortly. So very appreciative of all the support they've given us as well. So once again, listeners, thank you very much. We're looking forward to bringing you another guest next week, and we'll talk to you soon. Thank you.